I bought the Nexave here recently because it's a little bit more expensive, it's got to be better. And as I went through to pull the information together for this video, I should have done more homework. If you like what you see in the video today, please hit the like button for this video and subscribe to the channel so you can see upcoming fishing content as well as product reviews. First off, I have a couple of these. I don't have a crazy amount of rods and reels, but I do have 3 of these Siennas that I'm talking about and 1 of the Nexaves. The Nexave I picked up just a couple of months ago, but I have been able to put quite a bit of use through it. These Siennas I put a lot of fish through. So I do have some experience with both of these reels and have been putting some miles on them. I'm going to start with the basics between each reel. We're going to cover weight, line capacity, gear ratio, all the basic stuff. And then I'm going to break into the parts diagrams and show you some of the internal differences between these 2 reels to help you determine if you're in need of a Sienna or a Nexave for your next reel. The comparison that we're going to make today is between the $50 Shimano Nexave and the $30 Shimano Sienna. These particular ones are HG versions, so they're 2500 HG, and that stands for high gear. For me, that's really important when it comes to a spinning reel. I'm typically throwing a fluke or a Ned rig or a drop shot, something where the actual ratio of the reel has nothing to do with the action of the bait. I'm not deep diving a crankbait or anything like that, so when it's time for me to pick up and make another cast, I want the fastest line retrieve as possible, especially if I'm fishing like a super fluke. There's been times this past summer, I'll show the video here, where I'm chasing schools of bait. So I'll sling that fluke out there, and then I'm seeing them bust 30 yards away, so I'm reeling it in as fast as I can to make that other cast to try and keep on them. So there's no reason for me to go with a slower ratio. I really want, if they made a 7-to-1, I'd buy the 7-to-1 because I really prefer the fastest gear ratio that I can get. And then, like I said, both of these are 6.2-to-1s. Line capacity between these 2 are the exact same. Looking at 8-pound line, they will both hold 140 yards of line. For these particular 2 reels, they're holding, I have mono backing and then 20-pound high visibility braid to 8 or 10-pound fluorocarbon leader on. Talking drag, both of these are rated to 9 pounds of drag, which is perfectly adequate for a 2500 series reel for freshwater use. Both of these have Shimano's line propulsion system on it, and what that is the angled edge on the lip of the spool here, and that just really helps the line get off the spool. There's no differences here between the 2. It's the exact same. One of the differences here I'll show is more psychological than anything, I would say, but the drag clicking differences between these 2 reels is actually different. And what I've noticed is it gives you this feeling that it's better because one has more clicks than the other. But as we talked about, they're rated the same, and I'll show you in a minute, the internals of the drag are exactly the same. So it's really just a placebo. It kind of gives you this feeling that it's doing something, and it's really not. So here's the difference in the drag clicking. This one sounds fancier, but it's really doing the same thing. So the ring gear and the actual gears inside this reel are the exact same between the 2, as you can imagine. All of these specs pretty much are the exact same. They have basically like a cast aluminum gear in this one. It's not the Hagane forged gear or better quality gear that they have in like the NASCI and on up. So both of these, from a gear drive standpoint, the exact same. I have my laptop here, and we're going to go through the parts diagrams for these 2 reels, and I'm going to show you some of the differences between them, or lack thereof. Here is the Sienna 2500 HG. So that's the $30 reel. 3+1 bearings in this one. This is going to be your bare minimum when it comes to a bass fishing spinning reel, in my opinion. Highlighted here in green are the 2 ball bearings that are supporting the ring gear, which I'm highlighting here. So every one of these reels that I'm going to talk about has the 2 ball bearings supporting the ring gear. As you come around to the pinion gear, which I'm highlighting here, it is supported by a ball bearing on the backside. That's a plus, that's good. If you've watched my video on the SLX versus the Corrado, I go into some of the details here. And where you're going to find a benefit of having multiple bearings on the pinion gear is when you start loading down the reel. This one has this bushing that I've highlighted in this orangey brown color, and not that great, right? But it's a $30 reel, so I cannot knock it for a $30 reel to have just a bushing on the other end of it. Not a big deal, it's fine. I mean, it's got a 9-pound drag on it. You can't grind on it too much. It's a finesse setup. I'm using 8-pound line. I'm really not too worried about it, but that is a noticeable difference between a higher end reel and this reel that we're talking about. Looking at the drag, very basic setup on the drag. So underneath the spool here, as I'm showing on the screen, you've got The light blue is the fiber disc, and the dark blue is the steel on it. So that's what's making up your drag on the spinning reel. Not too exciting, right? Bare bones when you're talking. If you're going to be out there fishing for giant smallmouth or something like that, that's going to be pull and drag a lot more than your average largemouth, then you may want something better. So here is the Nexave. This is the 2500 HG Nexave. And here we have the ring gear supported by the 2 ball bearings, common with the Sienna. No big deal. That's 2 out of 3. This is a 3+1 bearing reel, just like the $30 Sienna, but this one is $50. So we're expecting to see some differences, right? Common on the bearings there. Common on the handle here, just bushings, nothing exotic there, no bearings. We're going to come over to the pinion gear, supported by a ball bearing on the back side. That's good, but still supported by a bushing on the other side. Not ideal, common with the $30 Sienna. No difference. But let's jump over to the drag, which is another big performance metric. No difference here. As I'm showing on the screen, this is both spools broken down. I'm gonna say guess, I didn't even bother measuring it because it's so close. I'm gonna guess that the Nexave has a 2 millimeter larger diameter than the Sienna drag system, which is completely negligible. They're rated to the same. You're not getting any more holding power out of that. And I don't think it's going to last any longer under heavy load, high drag, and a big fish pulling on it. I'm going to kind of get into some subjective differences between the two. Aesthetically, I think the Nexave looks better. For whatever that's worth, it's got some reliefs in the spool, it's got the relief in the handle. I think the blue coloring is better. It goes better with my SLX reels. But really the only difference from an ergonomic standpoint is going to be the handles. I do prefer the handle on the Nexave, but I mean, we're splitting hairs at this point. Most of these specs on the reels are the exact same, but I'd say if you gave me the handle on the Nexave and put it on the Sienna, that'd be a win, but it's not worth making a buy decision over. Another subjective comparison would be casting distance. Like I said, these are both 2500 series reels. They have the same line on them. They have the line propulsion spools on them. Casting distance, exact same. I have 2 of the Dobbin 702 SF setups, one with the Nexave, one with the Sienna. Same exact rod. They cast the same. And that's going to close out the differences, or lack thereof, between the Sienna and the Nexave. I bought the Nexave here recently because the Siennas have worked well, but I kind of wanted something a little bit better to try out. I wanted a forced spinning reel, and I said, you know what, it's a little bit more expensive, it's got to be better. And as I went through to pull the information together for this video, I should have done more homework. There's really no difference to me between these 2 reels. I should have just bought into the Sienna and called it good. But let's take it one step further. I know you didn't sign up for this in the video, but if you're hanging with me still and I haven't bored you to death, we talked about a $30 reel, we talked about a $50 reel, let's jump to a $100 reel and see what is the difference there. Is it twice as good as a Nexave? Would I rather have $100 reel or 3 Siennas, right? So now we have the Shimano NASCI. This is a 2500 HG. I don't own this reel. This NASCI is a 2500 HG, so it's comparable from a gear ratio and a size standpoint. This is a 5+1 roller bearing reel, whereas the other 2 were 3. So there's going to be 2 more bearings hiding in here. I'm going to show you what those are and what they're doing for you. All right, so we will jump over here like we've done on all these other ones, starting at the ring gear, ball bearing on each one. No difference here. As we go to the handle, there is 1 ball bearing on the handle itself, as you'll find bushings on the other more inexpensive reels. So you're going to get a little bit more smoothness out of it. I would say that you're going to feel that, especially with the eccentric feel of the spinning reel. Having a ball bearing there is a pretty good idea. Benefit there, that's 3. We've got 2 more. The other 2 are going to be shown here at the pinion gear, so let's jump in there a little bit. So we have a pinion bearing on the back side, just like all the other reels, no difference there. But like I touched on before, the Nexave and the Sienna have a bushing on the other side of the pinion gear. We have a ball bearing here, which I'm a fan of. It also has the Hagane gear set in it, so you're going to have a much more durable ring and pinion set in the NASCI compared to the less expensive reels. Now let's take a look at the drag. So I touched on the drag, there's no difference between the other 2. Here on the NASCI, oh, we have lots of colors. So we have actual 3 fibers shown in the light blue and 3 steels or metals or whatever you want to call them, steely. I call them steelies. So now we have a multiple drag disc setup on the NASCI. Thumbs up on that one. You're going to get endurance out of that, and you're going to get holding power out of that. So like I mentioned, we're at 20 pounds now, so you can crank that sucker down, and you're going to be able to zing on that. So if you're If you got it clicked to 12 pounds, you're going to be able to pull on that because you're going to separate that heat out into more steel plates and spread it across more fibers. So that drag is going to perform a lot better than the lower end reels if you're starting to target those fish like you're going to go out hunting for 4+ pound smallmouth on a finesse setup. I would be favoring a higher quality drag system in a reel. I'd be looking at the $100 NASCI if that's what I'm trying to do. If I'm doing some average bass fishing, occasional 3-pounder, occasional 4-pounder, fake finesse setup, Ned rig, drop shot, I have been okay with the Siennas, but if I hook up with a 6+ pound fish on one of those Siennas, or even the Nexave, the exact same drag system, I'm going to be a little bit concerned. But what is my recommendation? $30 Sienna or the $50 Nexave? I would rather have 2 Siennas to 1 Nexave if you're willing to spend for another rod. I find the versatility in it. I'll have a Ned rig on this one and a drop shot on this one and go between them and see what they want. Whereas you're limited, you got one, you got to cut off or retie. There's really not enough differences between these two reels to justify the percentage difference of cost between the two. Nexave's a pretty looking reel, but I don't really care. The performance just isn't there. If you want performance, if you want to get a really good quality, well set up, long lasting reel, you need to get to that $100 price point that the NASCI has to offer. I think these will last me fine. I am not fishing every day. I'm not competitive fishing every day. I don't have money on the line. So these work. But if I was starting to get a little bit more serious, the $100 price point is where you need to get to. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. I hope you learned something on some of the differences in these reels, some of the things to look for. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a like below and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you coming along. We'll see you next time.